We're going to have several announcements in the next 48 hours. And, Joe, I think what President Trump is concerned about is the quality of the deals, not the quantity. My mailbox was full last night with a lot of new offers, a lot of new proposals. So it's going to be a busy couple of days. But importantly, too, that President Trump has said that the countries would not go back to the reciprocal rate until August 1st.
Hi again, everybody. It's now 5 o'clock in the East with the 90 deals in 90 days deadline just 2 days from right now. Donald Trump's officials have moved the goalposts with a new message, new spin, a new August 1st deadline for those 90 deals in, well, not 90 days anymore. Just this afternoon, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt confirmed that Donald Trump will make that change official with an executive order. The shifting timelines are leaving many of America's trade partners with more questions than answers. But there is one thing that is abundantly clear. Donald Trump thinks the tariff game is just that, a game, and that it looks good on him. As one White House insider tells Politico, quote, Trump knows the most interesting part of his presidency is the tariff conversation. It's all fake. There is no deadline. It's a self-imposed landmark in his theatrical show, and that's where we are, end quote. Keep that in mind, business owners far and wide. It's a joke. It's all for show. Trump is abruptly re-escalating his man-made trade war today, sending letters to at least 14 countries, setting tariff rates between 25 and 40%. They'll go into effect on that new August 1st deadline, absent any more moving of the goalposts or deals. Those countries include top U.S. allies like Japan and South Korea. Why all of this is now been reported to be a, quote, game to Donald Trump, there are very real consequences to the volatile nature of his on-again, off-again tariffs. With the renewed tensions today, stocks fell 1%. The Dow sank roughly 400 points. Now, an extra few weeks could perhaps produce a few more deals than the current partial ones that exist with the UK and Vietnam. But as the New York Times reports today, quote, with tariffs threatening to strain diplomatic relations and bring some global commerce to a halt, a delay of a few weeks may not do much to soothe many foreign governments. It could also further unsettle financial markets, which revolted when Trump initially announced his global tariffs, a meltdown that prompted Trump to institute the 90-day delay. They add this, quote, his tactics have stripped businesses of the certainty they need to plan, resulting in higher prices, less investment, and slower economic growth for the country. That is where we start the hour. Some of our favorite experts and friends. U.S. financial commentator for the Financial Times and writer of the Unhedged newsletter, Robert Armstrong, is back. Also joining us, CNBC's senior Washington correspondent, Eamon Javers, and NBC News White House correspondent, Vaughn Hilliard. Vaughn, we'll start with you in that I guess it goes in the category of shocking but not surprising reporting in Politico that to Donald Trump, the tariffs are, quote, a game.
I think that if you look back at these last months here, Nicole, I would go to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent back in March when there was dispute within this White House about whether these tariffs were a negotiating tactic to use as leverage to force countries to come to the trading negotiating table, or whether these tariffs were permanent and here to stay. It depended if you talked to Peter Navarro, Howard Lutnick, or Scott Bessent, or even the president himself, who at one point said that they can be both. They can both be permanent tariffs and they can also be negotiating tools. And it was that comment from Scott Bessent back in March in which he said, quote, look, it's not linear, it's an organic process. And here on July 7, 2025, we are still very much living that in real time. I actually just, on my way out to talk to you, Nicole, about 5 minutes ago, ran into Peter Navarro, who was the very first one that folks may recall that threw out the idea that there would be 90 deals in 90 days. That statement was made after, on April 9th, this administration paused those, what they call reciprocal tariffs, those high tariff rates. And he effectively pledged and promised that there would be 90 deals that would come to fruition. Well, we haven't seen that happen. Maybe two countries have built somewhat frameworks of partial trade agreements, but we are far from those 90 deals in 90 days. And I was very specific with Navarro, and I asked him why there haven't been those 90 deals in 90 days. And he told me, quote, because the rest of the countries have it so good, they're dragging their heels. My follow-up question to him was on August 1st, why should countries take the U.S. seriously that they are actually going to implement those tariffs and not just shove them down the line again if, for example, the stock market falls? And he told me, quote, it doesn't matter from the sense that we're collecting billions of dollars on behalf of the American public. I think this is a live ball here at this White House as we watch these new deadlines come into fruition.
Eamon, I buy enough stuff for kids that I'm getting the emails about tariff price increases. And I want to ask you about consumers. And I have never heard Peter Navarro frame what he just described as basically a game and money pouring into the country in any language that helps American consumers. Where are they in all of this?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a real concern for American consumers as to whether or not prices are going to really skyrocket if the president follows through on these tariffs that he is announcing today, right? So step back and look at what a tariff actually is. A lot of people still, don't understand this. What a tariff is it's a tax on American importers. So American companies that are importing goods from overseas pay that tax whenever the goods cross the border to Customs and Border Protection, right? So the president likes to talk about this as we're charging Canada, we're charging Vietnam. No, what a tariff does is it charges the American company that's importing. Now, that American company has a choice, right? It can try to lower its prices by negotiating with its suppliers in Vietnam or China, see if they can get a better deal from those guys, or raising prices for consumers and passing that tariff cost on to consumers. What they're not going to want to do is lower their own profitability and have to answer to their shareholders about why they're making less money this quarter than they made last quarter. That's never where a CEO wants to be. So generally speaking, they're either going to try to get it from the suppliers or they're going to have to get it from the consumers, and that means prices are going to go up to some degree. Maybe not 100% of the tariff cost, but to some degree that those prices are going to get passed on.
And Eamon, just speak to the uncertainty. What does that do?
For CEOs, this is really difficult, right? Because they've spent 6 months now watching tariff rates going up, going down, being put on pause. You have a 90-day deadline, then the deadline comes and we're extending another month. They don't know what to make of this. They don't know where this ball is going to land, and so they can't plan. And so what you've seen is overall sort of a slowdown of economic confidence. You see that in a lack of hiring. You see that in a whole host of statistics as CEOs kind of tread water here and look to see, what might be coming next. The stock market is doing really well. We did see a jobs number that was good. So, across the board, you're seeing good economic numbers, but it's in a context where it's very difficult for CEOs to plan, to expand, to grow, to do all the things they want to do. So they're caught betwixt and between. And if these tariffs stay at this high rate that the president's announcing country by country today, some of that you'd have to imagine is going to have to get passed on to consumers, and they'll take a hit in the wallet.
So, Robert, you coined taco, and I know not in a derisive manner, that it was, in your view, right? Trump was deeply offended, insulted, feathers ruffled, all the words. But you didn't mean it in a derogatory way. And some of what Eamon's describing about the health of the markets is reflected in the term you coined, Trump always chickens out.
Correct. And I think, from my perspective, which is the perspective of somebody who believes in globalism and believes in trade as a source of strength from the United States, when Trump pushes these deadlines back, it's absolutely right, as Eamon pointed out, that this has some bad effects on confidence and so forth. But I prefer that alternative to the world in which the worst of Trump's policy ideas actually go into effect. What we don't want is a mercantilist, anti-global, poorer United States. So I'd prefer clear policy, but I like unclear policy better than I like bad policy.
So, Robert, just explain to me then that what the market's reacting the positive reaction in the markets is basically Trump's policy impotence and political lack of will.
Yeah, I mean, I think what the market is saying is that these policies won't add up to much when push comes to shove. And it's very important, even as we've seen announcements about countries like Vietnam and today about Japan and Korea. These are more like frameworks than actual deals. And it's very clear that room remains for negotiation. And so there's room for the markets to remain skeptical of Trump. The push will only come to shove, Nicole, when the markets see a trade deal they believe is going to stick. The markets have a chance to respond to that. And then Trump has a chance to respond to the markets. Then we see if he's going to chicken out or not. Right now, it's all preliminaries. The game really hasn't begun yet.